Well, President-elect John Mahama has officially begun his journey to assuming office. Yesterday, he visited the seat of government, the Jubilee House, and there was the inauguration of the Joint Transitional Team. That was held later in the day. And on Tuesday, he announced a 10-member transition team tasked with overseeing the smooth transfer of power from the outgoing administration. Well, expectations are high, seeing that the economy was a major issue for voters in last weekend's poll. So what has John Mahama promised and what hurdles are ahead? Lead data analyst here at Joynews, Isaac Ofeji, joins me in studio. Good afternoon to you. First of all, your reflections on the weekend's polls. I mean, we talked a lot about the economy, talked about the middle class, them sitting out of the elections.
Yeah.
Looks like that happened pretty much, and it cost the MPP.
Yeah, in fact, if you do the math, you will see that about 40% of the registered voters indirectly boycotted this year's election, if you look at the turnout. But the most important thing is that analysis we did here on business and politics, saying that, look, the economy is one of the most important issues going into this year's election, where we looked at the monetary policy rate and how it predicts elections. If you go back to watch that video, you will see that we said that the higher the peak, the higher the margin of win or defeat, and it's exactly the same thing that happened in this year's election. But all is said and done, President Mahama is president-elect, and we have to look at his, policies or promises on the economy. And definitely, you could read from his body language when he was declared the winner by the Electoral Commission that he knew that there is a big tax ahead, and number one was the economy, Darryl.
Right. I mean, top of my mind, 24-hour economy, that's what he campaigned on. But right now, he's talking about renegotiating the IMF and World Bank programs, aspects of it. I mean, he's talked about what are creating jobs. So many promises.
So many.
Where do we start from?
Well, so we start from these two figures on the smart wall. And the most important thing to note is that the 24-hour economy is more or less like the bigger umbrella under which almost all the other economic policies under John Mahama will operate. He made 112 promises going into this year's election compared to Dr. Bawumia's.
Well, I thought that was big till I saw the 186
promises.
112 promises.
112. So sitting there when he was declared, he knew that he, had 112, promises that he had made on the economy, and Ghanaians had voted for him. Possibly, or not possibly, I mean, mainly because of the current economic hardship that the country is facing. Let's look at some of the promises he made to the people of Ghana. And, I mean, this side will not be analyzed because it's almost immaterial at the moment. Now, the green side is where our attention will be put, because he is promising, John Mahama promised that, look, I'm going to take away the e-levy, the COVID-19 levy, the betting tax, and then also the emissions levy. So what we did was that this is a promise that a lot of Ghanaians will love and resonate with. And they will say, if you take away this, we will vote for you. But let's look at the economic burden ahead if he decides to do this. If he decides to do this, you can see we're currently under an IMF program, and the most important thing is revenue, mobilization. So definitely, if you are taking away these three components or tax handles, the key question is,
how do you make up
the alternative? Absolutely, because the COVID-19 levy alone, I mean, if you look at the period that we are looking at, that could give it, takes away this, that's about 13.91 billion Ghana cedis under this, I think from 2025 to he's done with his tenure. He could be getting about 91 billion Ghana cedis from the COVID-19 levy. He's forgoing this. And in economics, when the next best alternative for Ghana, what is the opportunity cost when we let go of this almost 14 billion Ghana cedis? E-levy, for instance, definitely not really performing in terms of the expected revenues. But if he decides to scrap e-levy, he's forgoing close to 8.3 billion Ghana cedis. And then the betting tax, or the 10% withholding tax on all games of chance, that if you do the math, that's also about 5.1 billion.
Well, he's talked a lot about expenditure cuts, but how much can you cut to make up for all these funds?
He says if you look at his 120 days social pact with the people of Ghana, he's going to operate the leanest government. I think about 60 ministers or so, I'm not so sure. But definitely, that will also be a key component when you're trying to do the cut. Another important, aspect of the economy definitely is how the cedi will fare under the president-elect. I mean, he says he's going to stabilize the cedi to curb the inflationary pressures. We've seen how inflation stubbornly refused to, go down in November. How is President Mahama going to look at this curve and bring this down? This is a curve. This is where he left the country. He left the country with somewhere around $1 to 4 cedis. He's coming back with $1 still trading around 16 cedis or 15 cedis, 80 pesos. He has promised to stabilize this and bring inflation down. He's currently looking at this curve and say, whoa, this is a big mountain that I need to bring. Absolutely, where he left versus what he is inheriting. And there's also another argument about, the debt situation currently. What is he going to do? I mean, if you look at the debt currently, it's about 761 billion, Ghana cedis. It's the reason why we had to restructure the debt, because of the unsustainable level where, if you look at our ability to pay the debt, is key. And he's saying he's going to renegotiate the IMF deal, but definitely if you are renegotiating IMF deal...
You've got 30 seconds.
Yeah, you have to look at Eurobonds. And I'll end on Eurobonds. John Mahama's biggest header will be, servicing his external debt. And Eurobonds will come, starting from 2025, you'll start paying about 1.3 billion in 2026, somewhere around almost $500 million in almost $1 billion in 2025, 1.3 billion in 2026. And if you look at between that time till he ends, it's always around 1 billion. The average is $950 million in terms of Eurobond payments. We've not added bilaterals, we've not added multilateral, we've not added even, debt servicing obligation in the domestic system. So big head ahead.
Revisit this subsequently.
Absolutely.
Plenty more to digest. Thank you so much, Isaac Ofieje.